This week has been by far one of the craziest weeks for the UFO community in a very, very long time. And a lot of the information coming out, of course, is coming from the September hearing that took place on Tuesday, just gone. And the information that we got, not just from the whistleblowers, but also the evidence that we received, was absolutely mind-blowing. Not only that, but we got some incredibly good news. Well, I say good news, but like important news from Representative Luna with regards to whistleblower protection off the back of what happened to David Grush on the way into the skiff. Obviously, all of that has been happening this week. And we're going to start off with Ross Coulthart making some very serious claims. It would seem this is very quickly becoming the theme for 2025 in the UFO space in particular. Ross Coulthart comes out on News Nation on the Reality Check podcast, makes some insane claims, and then the internet goes absolutely mental for it, whether it be a good mental or a bad mental. Well, this time, Ross Coulthart is claiming to be part of there's rumours that Ross Coulthart is part of a PSYOP campaign, right? And there's also some exclusive information coming out from Representative Luna on the same podcast, and also the FAA potentially having UAP whistleblowers. There's a big info dump, especially just before the UAP hearings tomorrow, at the time of me recording this with Representative Luna in Congress. There's a lot to sink our teeth into, right? So let's kind of get into the nitty gritty first, because the big kind of question is this PSYOP campaign. Now, many people are probably wondering, Ben, what is a PSYOP campaign? Well, let me tell you. Now, a PSYOP against someone obviously refers to a psychological operation, a targeted effort to try and manipulate perceptions, emotions, or behavior through strategic communications, misinformation, or potential propaganda, and it aims to influence their thoughts or actions, often covertly, to achieve a scientific agenda, like discrediting them, showing confusion, or controlling narratives. This is, been quite historically used by the military in particular, but, there's potential speculation going around that Ross Coulthart is now a target of this. Now, Ross Coulthart, obviously an investigative journalist known for his work on the UAP discussion, recently addressed rumours of a psychological operation targeting him specifically. Now, obviously, in the latest episode of Reality Check on News Nation, Coulthart responded to a viewer question about allegations of a PSYOP aimed at discrediting his work. The specifics of the comments on the PSYOP are not detailed in the available sources that I could find, but they indicate that he acknowledges these rumours and addresses them publicly, suggesting that he perceives attempts to undermine his credibility or influence in public perception of his UAP reporting. Now, Coulthart's work, particularly on his coverage of the UAPs and government secrecy, has sparked both, support and skepticism. And some online communities, as seen in the forum discussing, reports by Mystery Laws, expresses doubts about his credibility. Now, a lot of people are saying that, he's not a credible source. And I guess I wouldn't say that I've ever said that he's not a credible source, because, he is one of my go-to sources of information. And usually when he says something, I tend to listen. But what I will say is that there is a lot of things right now where Ross Coulthart, if I've said this once, I've said this a billion times, but he used to be the guy who would say something and back it with evidence, right? And be like, this is, X, Y, and Z. Here's the proof of what I'm trying to tell you. Whereas now, it's a lot more claims without the backing. So therefore, they are just that. They are just claims, not supported, evidence-based, things. So I guess that's probably where a few of the issues could potentially lie. Now, this is the moment where he spoke about it, right? So obviously this is in response as well to the Tic Tac claims that he's been making about them all being Lockheed Martin tech, and he had some very stern words to say about that as well.
Hey Russ, since you now know the Tic Tacs are Lockheed Tech, should we take everything David Grush says with a pinch of salt, since he told you that the Tic Tacs are truly anomalous? Keep up the good work, mate.
Look, we don't say, and I've never said, that all Tic Tacs are Lockheed Martin. If you listen back to what I've said that my sources, multiple independent sources, have told me that the 2004 Tic Tac US Nimitz incident was in some way controlled or operated by Lockheed Martin, that it was a blue on blue.
I remember that.
And if you think about it, why did the admiral of that battle cruiser fleet know and not register any surprise at all when he was approached and told about these objects? It doesn't mean that all Tic Tacs are human Lockheed Martin or other private aerospace corporation operated. As I've said repeatedly, and there's some mischievous disinformation going out there on the internet from people who are deliberately sowing disinformation, trying to cause mischief, it is entirely possible that what I am told Lockheed Martin was operating that day was an NHI retrieved craft that was being operated in some way by some kind of psi operator. It doesn't mean that all Tic Tacs are Lockheed Martin. So please have a think about the implications of that. It's on the record that there is, from multiple witnesses, that there is an effort by the United States to use psi operators, people with psionic abilities, to manipulate, to operate retrieved non-human technology. We know, or I know from my sources, that there are problems reverse engineering a lot of the highly advanced technology that has been retrieved. And I know some people will be rolling their eyes and saying, spew all, give us all of your information. I have to protect my sources as a journalist. And frankly, I'm only ever as good as my sources as a journalist. The reason why I've said that Lockheed Martin was responsible for the 2004 Tic Tac incident, highly controversially, by the way, there are a lot of people who've told me I should never have said it, and I don't think that's a healthy thing in the study of the UAP issue. If somebody can prove me wrong, prove me wrong. Very happy to hear it. It's always, I think, remotely possible that my sources, who are multiple and independent, they don't know each other, are telling me the wrong thing. I guess it's possible that there is some kind of massive psyop going on to disinform me. That's possible. I think extremely unlikely. But you can't say all Tic Tacs are Lockheed Martin just because I'm saying that the 2004 Tic Tac incident was a blue on blue, where Lockheed Martin was actually in some way testing its technology against a carrier fleet. I want to make that very, very clear because there's been a lot of misrepresentation in the last few weeks since I made the statement that I made.
There you go. So obviously that's with regards to the Tic Tac incident and also a potential PSYOP campaign against him. He acknowledges it, says that, people were just trying to stir the pot, create a bit of mischief in his own words, right? Now, the next part that they which I found really interesting, is about the FAA, or the Federal Aviation, I forget what it is. It's basically the people that will investigate plane incidents, like plane crashes, plane faults, all the rest of it, right? They had a lot of work on their hands back at the start of 2025 when there was literally just plane crashes everywhere. But about them potentially having UAP whistleblowers. Now, Ross obviously recalls a legendary Japan Airlines case where a massive craft dwarfed a 747. FAA investigator John Callahan kept a copy of the radar tapes before the CIA confiscated them. ATC insiders say that they see anomalies, quote-unquote, all the time. This is Ross commenting on that.
Is there any rules that the FAA has about UAP or unidentified stuff in the sky? I've heard many close encounters with pilots talking to the FAA. There's tons of those conversations out there, but I've never heard a whistleblower from the FAA. What does Ross think?
Well, there is actually a long way back. I commend people to go and have a look at the history of the JAL case, which was the Japan Airlines cargo plane, which was, I think, flying towards Alaska. I think it was doing an over the top of the world route. And whilst it was in flight, a gigantic object, a huge spherical object, the size more larger than the 747 that was actually flying. It appeared right in front of a captain, I think by the name of Takeuchi, And he made, much to his chagrin later in life, he really copped it for making this report, he made a full report about what he saw, and commendably he did so. Hopefully organisations like Ryan Graves' Americans for Safe Aerospace will protect pilots and civilian and military witnesses who see these things in aviation now from coming forward, and give them the protections they need to ensure they're properly heard. But what happened in the JAL case, there was an FAA senior investigator called, I think, John Callahan. And John had the temerity when the CIA came in, and it was the CIA, for God's sake, that came in and confiscated the radar telemetry tapes that were tracking this object that had been recorded, I think, out of Anchorage Aircraft Control. The CIA, the external, supposedly overseas intelligence service for the United States, for some reason got involved in investigating what was essentially an internal United States aviation issue. Why did the CIA intervene and confiscate the tapes from the FAA? They took them off Mr. Callahan, and thank God he had a pair and showed the balls to basically keep a copy. And when the agency confiscated the data records that recorded the history of this flight, it was John Callahan who came forward, I think, to one of the Stephen Greer disclosure hearings in the early 2000s and revealed that he had the radar telemetry data. So yes, there has been FAA whistleblowers. I talk to people in the FAA. I particularly talk to people on the west coast and east coast of the United States who work in air traffic control, who tell me that they see anomalous objects all the time, and that there is a reporting system, because the assumption is that these objects are often US black aircraft. And legitimately, even though there will no doubt be people who squawk that we should all know the full truth, legitimately, I think the military and the intelligence community are intervening to keep possible tracks of highly advanced aircraft that we do know exist, but which aren't yet public. I can understand why they want to keep those aircraft secret. But in the midst of all of that, I am told by some FAA employees that there are objects that are clearly anomalous, that are moving at speeds far beyond known human science, and they suspect far beyond known human technology, even Blackwell technology. And there is a pattern of behaviour, but if people really want to take an interest, they should have a look at the JAL case. I think his name was John Callahan. Sadly, John's now passed. I got the opportunity to speak to him a few years back. He was an extremely brave public official who came forward with the radar tapes showing the movements of this object that was being described by the Japan aircraft crew, moving in exactly the way that they described.
Now, the last part of information that people are really finding highly interesting from this is a News Nation exclusive from Representative Anna Paulina Luna, and it is a soundbite, right, which has Luna stating that she's shut out of SCIF clearances for UAP witnesses because the IC is running interference. And this obviously goes deep into a conspiracy of UAP secrecy, right? Now, obviously, Representative Luna was very recently in the SCIF with David Grush. She came out and stated that David Grush, you know, has had some significant threats against himself, against his family, and, you know, he's to the point where he's taken it to law enforcement to kind of, like, intervene with these people. And it's a law enforcement level. So, you know, she also stated that she... Who was it to? The Oscar poll, Matt Laszlo, I want to say. I think it is Matt Laszlo. You know, she came out recently and said that, you know, she's had some real difficulty with clearances there as well. So here's the clip.
Push back on our need to know clearances, just so you know.
From the DOD?
From intelligence agencies, but they're saying that they can't find the authorizing agency to actually give us clearance, which is so crazy.
That seems like a silly question, or it seems like a silly thing, because wouldn't the intelligence agencies have that information?
Correct. So, you can see that on our end too. We're still working through stuff, but it is really interesting when you look into some of these people's backgrounds, and I can tell you that we still have been unable to confirm certain people in SCIFs, and so, you know, until those criteria are met, we won't be able to get SCIF briefings from anyone.
Okay. Because these clearances are not just you guys, but it's the people that you're trying to bring into this.
Yeah.
No.
Difficulties. A lot of difficulties with a lot of things. Every time there seems to be progress, right? It's like 1 step forward, 5 steps back. 1 step forward, 5 steps back. You know, and then suddenly we take a massive leap forward, and then there's a massive leap back. There's always, you know, people are always being met with roadblocks, essentially. But what do you make of this? Obviously a very interesting episode from Ross Coulthart. I highly recommend that you go and check out the full episode over on the News Nation YouTube channel. You know, it's good listening. It's a shorter one this time. It's about 30 minutes long. Definitely worth your time. And just moments before the historic UAP hearing even took place, we got some really, really big moments from Jeremy Corbell, George Knapp, and many, many other people. It is getting incredibly spicy just before the UAP hearing that will be taking place later on today at the time of me recording this video, as Dr. Gary Nolan has been making some incredibly huge claims with regards to some strange materials that have been retrieved from a site in New Mexico, which includes an alleged quote-unquote alien honeycomb, so we'll be going over that. But more specifically, we'll be talking about Representative Luna, who was on all sorts of news outlets recently, you know, ahead of this UAP hearing, clearly trying to get the word out that this will be taking place, right? And she says that apparently there's a bipartisan UFO meeting with Russia, and we'll get into that as well, because there's a lot of information, obviously, with regards to not just Russia, but why Russia in particular, and why that's related to George Knapp, who will be testifying in Congress. And we've also got the some information from Luna that says that someone brandished a weapon in a threatening manner to David Grush, and that was disclosed to her in the SCIF earlier this week, which is why the whistleblower protection is one of the largest parts of this UFO hearing. There's obviously a shed load to go over in this video, right? But we'll get into Dr. Gary Nolan first with his claims. So obviously, like I said, they've retrieved something. He not specifically said what. Well, he has said what, but you know, from a site in New Mexico, right? And it's an alleged quote-unquote alien honeycomb with a silvery black friable metal with a clear aluminium base and with pieces in odd patterns, right? So take a little listen to this, because this is pretty huge.
And for us, for me, with the Atacama, it then became clear by bringing in the necessary experts that, oh, well, here's how you fix it. Oh, voila, the image gets clear. It's a human child, and here are some potential mutations that cause it. So with the metals and the materials that I recall us bringing back, one were the so-called, what was it, the alien honeycomb, as it was called at the time. And, I mean, it definitely looked strange. There was another, which was kind of this silvery black covered metal that was slightly friable. And then there were a few pieces, clear pieces of metal that looked like aluminum with kind of scratchings and etchings on them. Not etchings as if somebody was writing hieroglyphics, just kind of a pattern with a brown substance on them. And there might have been one or two more that we found. And in fact, Diana was like a divine.
Now, obviously, that's pretty big deal, considering everything that we're finding out about UAPs and, you know, reverse engineer programs and all of this stuff. Suddenly, Dr. Gary Nolan just chimes in and is like, oh yeah, by the way, we've also got this. I remember just collecting this from New Mexico this one time. It was great. But obviously, the big stories right now are coming out from Representative Luna. Now, George Knapp is going to be one person that is going to be testifying in front of Congress with everything that he knows, right? Hopefully, I'm praying that we get another huge crash out from Jeremy Corbell, because that would be absolutely incredible, because obviously that was the highlight with the Immaculate Constellation stuff back at the last hearing, was it last year or earlier this year? I can't remember. Now, George Knapp essentially back in the 1980s went over to Russia, right? And he stumbled across a bunch of paperwork about reverse engineering alien tech or like crash retrieve craft. And he just smuggled that out of Russia. Now, the size of the testicles on this man needed to do something like that in a place like Russia is unholy, right? But he did it. And apparently the information that's been found has been spoken about by Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp over the years. Like, there's a clip right here from Jeremy Corbell talking about Russia reverse engineering UAP craft.
It's an incredible thing that the UFO topic, that it's so, this is something that Bob Lazar has always said, it's a crime against the scientific community when you can't share this stuff, the reverse engineering programs. It's not part of the scientific process to keep everything so compartmentalized. We're not going to name him, but you and I both know a scientist who's been involved in a reverse engineering program that was from a Russian craft that has to do with lasers. And I think that's okay to say, but you're aware of what I'm saying.
I am, and that's what I was started to say, is the Russian provocations where their warplanes fly very close to us. I think it's related to something that they have developed from crashes. That is what I've been told, is that they've developed a weapon system that they can't wait to use against us, and that it came from somewhere else.
Wow, that's crazy, man. Well, I guess that is the whole point of the secrecy. If the UFO reality is what it appears to be, and if our governments are trying to study the UFO technology, and if they are keeping it hidden from the American and kind of global public because of the reason that they want to get a technological advantage, it really makes sense to me, and this is what we're both told over all this time of looking at this, that we are all in a race that people don't know about. But it's a technological race, because anybody that develops this weaponization technology based on the material science of the reverse engineering of these UFOs, they win, hands down, they win. We can create a laser beam or something like that, but these weapons of mass destruction that can be created by reverse engineering the technology, if all of that is true, I get why some of the secrecy is there. You don't want this to get out. You have to hide it.
Well, it's not just speculation. We can guess about it right now, what our government is trying to do in reverse engineering. The Russians that we talked to back then were very clear about it. They were trying to reverse engineer that technology from UFOs. Yeah. That was their goal. That was the goal of a nationwide, massively intensive UFO investigation for a decade and programs that followed, and I'll bet it's still going on.
People talk about disclosure all the time, whatever that means. Like, the public is told about UFOs. If anything brought us close to that, would you say this Russia experience of you coming back, getting all this information, for you, was that a personal version of, holy shit, this is true?
Absolutely.
Now, this is not a new clip at all. This came back out in 2023, I think it was. But since then, Jeremy Corbell has been on the Joe Rogan Experience and has spoken about the story of when George Knapp smuggled out these documents about reverse engineer craft from Russia. Now, the reason that this ties in to what I'm going to show you next is because Representative Luna, who of course is spearheading this hearing and has obviously, probably heard some information from George Knapp prior to the hearing where he's going to testify under oath, has basically said that there's a bipartisan UFO meeting that's going to be taking place with Russia. The fact that that's even going to happen, because obviously Russia and America have got a bit of history, and Russia's are usually a very secretive kind of place. It's interesting that that's actually going to be the case, but here's what Representative Luna had to say on the matter.
What is the context for the Russia program? What can we expect about that? Obviously, when you hear Russia, people's eyes light up.
Yeah, so there's over 300 pages that will be submitted into the congressional record, of which people will be able to go through themselves. And really my main question for Mr. Knapp is, and of course every member of Congress wants to know, how do you prove that this isn't actual disinformation that was handed over to American journalists or smuggled out of Russia by the KGB? And I think the real answer to that, in my opinion, is that we're not the only country that's actually looked into this. We actually have multiple parliaments that have announced hearings similar to what we're doing here in Washington, D.C., ranging from Mexico to Brazil to other countries as well, that are looking into launching their own task force. And so, to my knowledge, the Russian government did have something similar. I can tell you, Cuomo, that I actually met with the Russian government recently and asked them point blank if they had any information to share on this topic. And on that same front, we are looking forward to actually doing a bipartisan meeting with the Russian parliament settlement here pretty soon. So we're trying to get that on the books.
I mean, that's quite a big deal. That's quite a big deal. Russia aren't exactly the people that tend to share their secrets. So the fact that this has been able to be organised, at least, is a step in the right direction. But we'll see. Anyway, the last thing that we're going to talk about before the big UAP hearing takes place later on today is the fact of David Grush. Now, Luna's already come out and stated that they tried to get whistleblowers to come forward and testify under oath, but she couldn't. And the reason that she couldn't was because whistleblowers just didn't feel safe. They were too intimidated by the prospect of what could happen if they were to testify. And that is no better summed up than what we're about to hear, because obviously Luna earlier this week had David Grush in the skiff, which of course is the very secretive room where, what goes in there stays in there, essentially, until you go on national TV and blurt out what's happened in there. But essentially Luna stated that David Grush had a weapon basically brandished on him, and that's part of the reason as to why whistleblowers didn't want to come forward. And obviously one of the big taglines for this UAP hearing is whistleblower protection and safety. That's one of the big things that they're really trying to hammer home in this hearing. So let's listen to what Luna had to say on that.
We have some good testimony from witnesses. Not to mention, again, you should ask Grush about the weird incident that happened prior to him going into the skiff with me and Representative Burleson. Something happened as he was driving in to do a VTC with us. So it's very interesting kind of handling this topic. Obviously, anytime someone says, no, don't look there, you know me, Cuomo, I always tend to look and see what we can find. And what I can tell you is, there are many people from all across the DOD, across the entire U.S. government. Over 30 people, to include our own Secretary of State, have come forward and said, there's something here. And so I think to question it, to look at the evidence, and then decide for yourself what you have to see on the matter.
Joe Khalil, News Nation, got us the reporting. You can't just throw the Grush thing out there like that and not tell me what do you know about it? And why do I have to ask him? Do you know what it is?
Because I don't want to take that away from him, and law enforcement is involved. But in my opinion, if you are going to brandish any weapons at congressional staffers, it's very alarming, and I will leave it at that. But what I can tell you is it was very interesting in timing, and based on what we've heard previously with some of these witnesses, to include some witness testimony that you'll hear tomorrow, this is not the first documented case of this, which is incredibly important as to how do we address this in the future. First of all, whistleblower protections need to be a lot stronger. We also have different UAP legislation where these members of Congress are coming together. And I do think that also, there's a lot going on the Hill. As you know, Cuomo, there's a lot of partisan stuff, but this is one of the few bipartisan things that we've been collectively able to work on together.
Now, obviously, you probably heard that there, and, she referenced him as a congressional staffer, which he is, because for Representative Burleson, he is an advisor, or he's taken on an advisor role for Burleson on the UAP topic. So he, by association, is a congressional staffer. So someone has pulled a weapon essentially on a congressional staffer, which is a big no-no. I mean, pulling a weapon on anyone is a big no-no, but if they're part of government, it's an even bigger no-no. So don't go doing stuff like that, essentially. What do you guys make of all of this? Let me know what your thoughts and opinions are down in the comments below. Obviously, I'm very intrigued to see what comes out of the hearing later on today. Now, of course, the biggest thing and the key highlight from the UAP hearing was, of course, the Hellfire missile video, where it seems to be a Hellfire missile is fired into something that we aren't able to identify, and it just bounces off. I think at this point it's safe to say that this UAP hearing that has just taken place might be one of the biggest ones that we've had yet. Obviously, the 2023 one was the one that really trailblazed absolutely everything with David Grush. The next one with Tim Gallaudet and, Lou Elizondo and stuff like that, they were good, but, it was more words than evidence. But then, this one comes flying out of the waters, right? More like a Mach 1 Hellfire missile just bouncing off of a UFO and just blows the water. It was pretty big. So obviously I've referenced there one of the key things that is being talked about off the back of this UAP hearing, but there is a lot that has gone on. I'm going to break down some of the key moments for you. Obviously, if you want to go and check out the full, almost 3-hour version of it, go over to CBS or, you know, major news outlets really. They covered it quite extensively and pretty much have the whole thing for you readily available. But this is the first thing. So obviously George Knapp was one of the witnesses and testifiers, I guess, who sat in front of Congress and basically told his version of events. And he's gone on record as naming Lockheed Martin as a company in possession of UFO technology. This isn't new information at all. Obviously, we already knew this because Ross Coulthart has come out and stated that, like, at least he's got, you know, witnesses that have come forward and said at least one Tic Tac UFO has been named as Lockheed Martin Tech. So this doesn't come as a huge surprise, but it's still, you know, nails in the coffin.
Who are the contractors that have this material, the corporations?
Well, one of them is Lockheed. And I'll tell you, I mean, you know, I'm not saying Lockheed's the bad guys. They're doing what they were asked to do. Sure. They have lied about this because that's what they're supposed to do. But Lockheed would be one. There's a list I can give you, Congressman. Some of the big ones, the usual suspects.
Okay.
There you go. So that, you know, gone on record as to state that, you know, Lockheed is one of the key contractors for the government with this UFO stuff. Again, not exactly breaking news, but it's more evidence to suggest that this may be the case. Hopefully there can be further investigations into Lockheed to see what they're really doing behind the scenes. Because obviously if you go to Lockheed and say, hey, we've got reason to believe that you're working on UFOs, I should be like, what? You're crazy. You're crazy. So, yeah. Now, obviously one of the big, huge things was this surveillance footage that seemed to show a Hellfire missile just bouncing off of some kind of UAP. Now, that doesn't happen. Bear in mind that Hellfire missiles are named Hellfire missiles for a reason. They demolish anything in their path, right? Hellfire missiles are able to destroy any known tank in the world. Bear in mind, tanks are, well, they're called tanks for a reason, right? They are tanks. And a single Hellfire missile can demolish one of those. They can level buildings, right? They can go up to speeds of Mach 1. That breaks the sound barrier, right? These things are probably the most powerful missiles, aside nuke missiles, that we've got. Nothing is impenetrable to one of these bad boys. Yet there is footage that has just come out that shows a Hellfire missile hitting something and just bouncing off. Now, a Hellfire missile, even if this thing was incredibly strong, it should have maimed it enough to ground it for then a collection team to go and grab it, instead of just completely kapooting it out of the sky. But this thing just carried on going. It got hit and it just went, that was a light tickle, off we go. Look at this.
I'd like to ask the committee to replay that video that Burleson had played earlier. I want to ask every witness here, specifically ones that have sensor training or have been able to recognize some of this movements real quick. So if you guys can please roll that real quick. Okay, while this is still rolling, Mr. Nusatelli, real quick yes or no answers. Are you aware of anything in the government, United States government arsenal that can split a Hellfire missile like this?
No.
And do whatever blob thing it did and then keep going? Nothing?
Nothing.
All right, how about you, Chief Wiggins?
Nothing to my knowledge, ma'am.
Okay, and how about you, Mr. Borland?
I prefer to answer that in a skiff.
Okay, does this video scare you guys? Yes or no?
Yes.
Wiggins?
Yes.
Nat?
I had a different reaction. I was really happy that it got out. Thanks for providing
Curiosity
that.
killed the cat. All right, Mr. Borland?
Yes, for...
Okay. All right, that is the end of my questioning. I'd like to now recognize...
I mean, considering these people are, you know, military personnel, ex-military personnel, intelligence personnel, and they're like, yeah, that's somewhat concerning, because a Hellfire missile should just be able to destroy anything that it's put in its path. Yet this thing just split it in half and cracked on like it was just a light tickle. That's kind of a big deal. That really is kind of a big deal. And, you know, a lot of people are talking about this footage, right? Because obviously, you know, it's completely blown up in, like, across... Because no one's ever seen anything like this. No one's ever seen anything like this. This is the first time in history we've seen something like this, right? And, you know, there's some more information on this right here.
To testify. That's good. So what do you think the American people should take away from watching your video, right? Because when we watch it, obviously, right, we've never seen anything like that. It defies what we know to be technologically possible. What are we supposed to think? Someone's lying about something. Someone's hiding something, right? That's not normal what you looked at.
I think what the American people should think when seeing that video, along with others before me, is that there is something out there, and we should know as the people what it is.
Right, and so let's eliminate possibilities. So they didn't come to you and say there was a technological error with what you were looking at. So we put that aside, right? They didn't say it was broken. So we look at that and we see something. So it's either a weapons program being reverse engineered by our governments or other governments, or it's nobody's government, and it's not from here. Those are it. You agree with that assessment?
I agree. One or the other.
Mr. Borland, when you first experienced...
To testify.
That's good. So
obviously what we were shown on the right is some different footage of some kind of craft kind of evading this like lock-on system, right? Which isn't exactly normal, right? So this is a Tic Tac UFO that was filmed back in 2023 by the USS Jackson, right? So, you know, that, again, more incredible and very compelling footage has come forward with regards to that. Now, I mean, we also had Dylan Borland, who recounts his encounter with a giant triangular UFO, and he testified that under oath in front of Congress. And obviously, Dylan Borland is a former U.S. Air Force geospatial intelligence specialist. So this guy literally knows what he's talking about.
As I began walking towards the light, towards the flight line and the track, the light then flies across the base, across the flight line, and as it flies to me, a triangle manifests around the light. I can't tell you if it's active camouflage. I can't tell you if it appeared around the light, but I can tell you that it was a white light, and then it was a triangle. It stopped about 100 feet in front of me and approximately 100 feet above me. My telephone got extremely hot, completely froze, dead. I remember how thick it was. It was between 1 to 2 stories thick, equilateral triangle. I could never see the top of it, and the edges were 90 degrees. There were 4 lights in total, 1 light on each corner, and a larger light in the center, 2 to 3 times the size of the corner lights. But what was really odd was the outside. The best way to describe it is like looking at a James Webb telescope picture, where you have the colors and then the black background. So the craft itself was this black metallic flake paint, but on top of the craft was this gold, lava, plasma, some type of fluid going over and around the craft. I'm under this for about 2 to 3 minutes, and then the center light flashes 2 to 3 times, no sound, immediately shoots up to commercial jet level minimum, in my opinion. And I immediately feel static electricity all over my body, and then I smell the smell of after a thunderstorm or lightning storm, that really strong summer thunderstorm smell. Gets up to flight level. I'm trying to get my phone reset, and I can only see the center light at this point. If I didn't actually see it take off, I would have thought it was a star. And then it hovers up there, and it begins to slowly move due east out over the Atlantic Ocean. I finally got my phone reset. The entire thing was about, from the time I saw the light pop up near the hangar until it took off out over the ocean, was about 15 minutes.
I mean, obviously, no evidence to support this one, but, you know, he's testifying under oath. So the story carries weight, and also his reputation and his rank and his, you know, position within the US military also should carry some weight. Now, Obviously, there's a lot of information that's come out with regards to quite a lot of stuff. So, we've got some information coming out about Arrow loopholes. Okay, so Arrow was quite a big talking point because obviously Arrow is the Department of it's the Department of War now. It's not even the DoD anymore, which is kind of crazy. But it was brought up quite a lot because people don't necessarily trust Arrow, and people don't necessarily trust the people that run it, like Sean Kirkpatrick, who we'll talk about in just a moment. But Dylan Borland speaks about, some Arrow loopholes that can be used to basically avoid the topic of disclosure.
Mr. Borland, when you engaged with Arrow in 2023, you noted that their public statements did not match the reality that you and others had witnessed. In your assessment, what were the key limitations of Arrow?
I would put it to you this way. The statement Arrow has made is scientific evidence of extraterrestrials. Scientific evidence requires a scientific control. Extraterrestrial is an entity on another planet. The only way to scientifically prove extraterrestrial is we have to go to that planet, acquire technology, bring it back, and compare it to what we have here.
So you're saying they won't let anything out or they won't come forward unless they confirm that unless they go to the planet and confirm where its origin is.
That would be scientific evidence, yes. And by that statement, Arrow found no scientific evidence of extraterrestrials is basically, I don't want to call it a psyop, but a misrepresentation, because we do have things. But making that statement is not technically a lie. It's a misrepresentation of the full truth.
Now, I would class that as a lie myself, because if you withhold the truth, you are, in part lying about the full truth. Now, obviously, Arrow kind of doing this is so cheeky because it's like, yeah, well, we can't scientifically prove that it's extraterrestrial because we can't prove what planet it's actually come from, and that would define an extraterrestrial. Now, fuck you, Arrow, basically. But now we've also got some information coming out with regards to Sean Kirkpatrick, because George Knapp's testimony about Arrow appears to have operated counterintelligence efforts to discredit UFO whistleblowers, right? Now, Representative Luna says that she may even subpoena Sean Kirkpatrick following this testimony about basically Arrow going against their mandate and completely misrepresenting whistleblowers.
It almost looks like Arrow operated as a counterintelligence operation to get people to come in, tell their stories, and then discredit all of them. I can't imagine that any whistleblower or witness will ever go to Arrow again because of what happened under the first director, who's now long gone, but still seems to act as the spokesperson for that organization.
And I would say, Madam Chair, maybe at some point we need to really dig deep into Arrow, and I would encourage us.
Oh, I'd be happy to send maybe a subpoena to Mr. Kilpatrick.
There you go. Mr.
Subpoena, potato. Anyway, yeah, so that's obviously quite a big deal. The House loved that, rounds of applause for that, and stuff like that. But there's no denying, right? So Nuccatelli was also someone that came forwards as a testifier under oath. And, he even labelled this as a pivotal moment in history. Take a look, listen to what he had to say.
We stand at a pivotal moment in history. The question is no longer whether these events are real, but whether we have the courage to face them. True leadership requires vision, a willingness to confront the unknown with transparency and resolve. So I ask the Congress to help we, the people, enact this vision. There are 3 goals. Fund independent research and treat UAP study with the same seriousness as we would any other scientific field. 2, end secrecy and overclassification. Transparency is the foundation of truth. Without it, witnesses like us are dismissed. 3, protect the witnesses. Many stay silent out of fear for their careers, reputations, and the safety of their families. Protect them, and you will embolden others to join this cause. These phenomena challenge our deepest assumptions about reality, consciousness, and our place in the universe. Exploring them can unlock transformative breakthroughs in technology, biology, and human understanding. Let this be the moment when America chooses courage over fear, transparency over secrecy, and progress over stagnation. Let's show the world that our nation leads not only through strength, but through fearless pursuit of the truth. Thank you.
Powerful statement there. Obviously, we've heard a lot coming out from the past couple of days, especially with Representative Luna saying that it was really hard to get these hearings in place because whistleblowers didn't want to come forward. They were terrified. And then you've got stories of David Grush on his way to the skiff having people pull a knife on him, right? Or pull a brandish a weapon, they stated. I'm assuming a knife, but, it's America. It could be, a firearm. It's crazy. And his testimony there is very powerful and very empowering. Now, George Knapp as well, we're going to bounce back to. Obviously, you can see we're kind of bouncing around people here, but it's just the way in which it happened. He's detailed a UFO event in a Russian military base in the 1980s. Now, obviously, this is a big deal because Luna's already stated that they've got a bipartisan meeting with Russia and, about their, reverse engineer programs and stuff. Knapp was obviously the person that brought back some files after smuggling them out of Russia in the 1980s. And this is probably his testimony about what he saw in the files and what he witnessed.
You'll see those files that I shared with you. They did find stuff. There was an incident in October of 1982 over an ICBM base where UFOs popped up, was observed over this base where the missiles are pointed at us, United States. These UFOs perform incredible maneuvers. They split apart. They fuse back together. They'd appear and disappear. And right at the end of this 4-hour period, the launch control codes for the ICBMs lit up. Something entered the correct codes. The missiles were fired up and ready to launch, and they could not shut it down. The Russian officers were panicking. The UFOs they disappeared. The launch control system goes back to normal. Colonel Sokolov and his team came in, took the thing apart, could not figure out what it was. It wasn't a power surge or EMPs or some of the baloney excuses that our country has given for similar events involving our nuclear missiles. They thought it was a message from wherever the UFOs were from. And that's a chilling thing. I mean, we were a couple of seconds away from World War III starting, and the UFOs were responsible for it.
All right, I'm at it.
That's crazy, isn't it? That is actually crazy. Now, that's kind of the key parts of the specific, things that I wanted to highlight, especially from the hearing. But we've got some post reactions. So this one here is from Eric Burleson, who, of course, it was, one of the chairmen for this hearing alongside Representative Luna and Burchett. And this is what he had to say with regards to this, kind of almost instantly after the hearing.
Hey guys, Stephen Diener here at UAP, live from Capitol Hill with Representative Eric Burleson. The hearing just ended on UAPs, and Eric, great job, amazing. You showed the video of the egg-shaped UAP getting hit, and nothing happened by that Hellfire missile. So what was your reaction now that that's out there for everybody to see that?
For me, it's really a relief to get that out there. There was a lot of stress involved in a decision matrix and whether or not what to do with this. And look, I'm being very vulnerable to the American people. I don't know. This video may be faked. It may be AI. It may be something that's just very prosaic. But I just want the American people to know that rather than sit on it and try to gatekeep it, I'm going to be fully transparent, and I think that we need to have that posture, a posture of be transparent until we know we have to classify things.
Were you satisfied with today, now that's all said and done?
Yes. I mean, building up these hearings is a ton of work, and I thought Anna did a fantastic job.
Last question, and I'll let you go. What are the chances that the subpoenas do happen from the Oversight Committee towards Sean Kirkpatrick or anybody else involved with covering this secret up?
We'll see. Anna, I think, is a bulldog. I think she's going to pursue what's necessary, and so we'll see.
Representative Burleson right here, Stephen Diener, UAP. Thanks, guys.
That's crazy, isn't it? I mean, I hope the subpoenas come in. I hope that they, that they come to be, because, Sean Kirkpatrick's got a lot to answer for. Hell of a lot to answer for. Now, Burleson then appeared this morning, my time, probably like just after the hearing, America time, on News Nation to break down the UAP footage and, you know, the entire UAP hearing in a bit more detail, and this is what he had to say on that.
Hello. It seems like you brought some receipts there today. That video, I've watched it a bunch. Now our audience has watched it several times. Tell me what we saw.
Yeah, it's a remarkable video. I received it anonymously with what it's in a way in which I've learned is called a dead drop. The video was scrubbed from all information. So, and that's why I'm saying.
What's a dead drop? Hold on one second. What's a dead drop?
Completely anonymously. There's nothing to trace back to, and I have no idea who gave it to me. So I decided I could either sit on it and try to spend time. I don't have the resources to do forensic on video. And so either I could sit on it, but look, I'm a disclosure guy. I'm just going to let the internet figure out the validity of this video. And so that's kind of the posture that I took.
We heard from witnesses today. Here's one of them.
I heard my friend screaming, it's coming right at us, it's coming right for us, and now it's right here.
The craft itself was this black metallic flake paint, but on top of the craft was this gold lava, plasma, some type of fluid going over and around the craft.
So here's where I am, Congressman. You can either believe that some of this is extraterrestrial. You could believe that some of this is government and we don't know about it. Maybe it's a mix of both. I have no clue, and it sounds like you don't either. I wonder, though, at this point, sort of where you are.
I'm still at the place where I just really am not going to buy that it's extraterrestrial until I'm proven otherwise, right? I think that the most likely scenario is that we have advanced technology that is being experimented on. I think that our adversaries probably have similar advanced technology, and which may be what we're seeing in this video. And so I'm just going to try to play it safe here until I'm proven. I'm from the show me state. You're going to have to show me until I'm proven otherwise. I'm not going to say that there's non-human intelligence or aliens from another planet. But this is remarkable. And the truth is a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of resources being put into the UAP phenomenon. And I think we owe it to the American taxpayer, to the people that own this government, some answers.
So you had several witnesses today, I believe 4, who were there testifying. David Grush, the original whistleblower for all of this, was there, but not testifying. He was seated next to you, I believe, at points, because he's been working for you or working for your office for several months now as an advisor. Congressman, what have you learned that you can tell us about from David Grush that you didn't know before Grush started working for you that you know now?
Yeah, David has been fantastic. Look, this is a topic that, I'm a financial advisor. I was a software consultant. I came from the private sector.
You didn't think you'd be involved in this, huh?
No, and I have no real concept of how to navigate the intelligence community and all the inner workings and where the bodies are buried, all that kind of stuff, which is why I felt like the smart thing to do was to hire somebody that did. And I think that David Grush absolutely has done a fantastic job of helping me in my office be a all-star player when it comes to this investigation. We can't keep him on forever, but because I think he's more lofty and better places to go than working for the member of Congress. But he's been fantastic. And a lot of the stuff that you see really comes from, for example, that video, consulted on that video and said, David, what do you think? Is this legitimate? He gave me both the pros and the cons. And that's kind of expertise that we need, I feel like, as a member to be able to go forward with proper
Eric Burleson, front and center with us tonight, honest and revealing. Thank you for the time, sir.
Very powerful. The entire thing was incredibly powerful, and it was great to see this level of, well, not just exposure and disclosure, but footage. We finally got evidence to back up what people are claiming. And the fact that, I think that this should be the mantra moving forward. Release it all, and then let people who have the capability of deciding whether it's real or fake to decide whether it's real or fake, and then, you know, take what you can from it. What do you guys think on the whole thing? But after the UAP hearing, the news did not stop there, as things continued to spiral, and we also saw some reconciliation between two people that were beefing only days before, in the form of Lou Elizondo and Representative Luna. The UAP hearing of 2025 has really got the ball rolling on a lot of questions, in particularly the video clips that were shown, that of the Hellfire missile being split literally in half and bouncing off of something is definitely taking the internet by storm. But we've also had some comments from Lou Elizondo, who was beefing with Representative Luna not too long ago about his skiff comments, coming out and completely U-turning and just switching up his attitude on Representative Luna real bloody quick when he was asked by News Nation about the David Grush incident, where of course someone brandished a weapon against David Grush when he was on his way into the skiff. Comments are quite scarce on that because it is in the hands of law enforcement right now. But we've also got some very interesting news and information coming out from Army Colonel Carl Nell with regards to NHI and Lockheed Martin, which of course was posed to George Knapp in the UAP hearing of September 2025, where he stated categorically that he believes that Lockheed Martin is just, you know, they were just doing what they were supposed to do. They were doing what they were paid to do and contracted to do, which is to take in and reverse engineer NHI craft. Very interesting. We'll get onto that as well. And then also the incredible news that came out of NASA yesterday, which is they have discovered the quote-unquote clearest signs of life on Mars, suggesting that ancient life might have once lived on the red planet. We're going to be breaking down all of this today because this is kind of the biggest news that has been coming out of the news with regards to UAP stuff at this current time. We're going to start off with Lou Elizondo because this man has switched up his tune real quick. Not even a week ago, he was beefing with Representative Luna on Twitter about the skiff comments and stuff like this, where she stated that he was, you know, using a busy schedule as an excuse to not go into the skiff. He was stating that he was blown out by the representatives. It was a whole thing. They were backing and forthing. They were beefing about it. But now he's come out and he's really changed up his tune. And he's saying, yeah, she's doing a fantastic job. Let's see what Lou Elizondo had to say.
David Grush, who came forward to News Nation, helped us, as you know, break the story wide open. Something weird happening to him while he was on his way to meet with lawmakers. Let me play this for you and get your take on the other side.
Law enforcement is involved, but in my opinion, if you are going to brandish any weapons at congressional staffers, it's very alarming, and I will leave it at that. But what I can tell you is it was very interesting in timing, and based on what we've heard previously with some of these witnesses, to include some witness testimony that you'll hear tomorrow, this is not the first documented case of this, which is incredibly important as to how do we address this in the future.
Yeah, this made news. It made headlines last night, but it was kind of cryptic. Do you know anything more about that and what she's referencing, Lou?
I do. I cannot comment on an active law enforcement investigation, but what I will say is what Congresswoman Luna is doing is absolutely correct. She is shining light on the tactics of intimidation that folks like David Grush, myself, and many other whistleblowers have had to face simply just for coming out and telling the truth. And I'll tell you what, too, I think today you might hear some little bit more about that, about other types of intimidation tactics of some of our brave men and women in uniform, and what the lengths of government will go to keep their mouth shut on this topic.
Now, Lou Elizondo has come out and stated, in the past that he's been a victim of stuff like this in the past. So, maybe there's a little bit of sympathy there for David Grush with regards to what he's been through. But it's very interesting to hear the switch up. He doesn't seem like the kind of person that would necessarily take this kind of news lying down and would be the kind of person that would, I don't know, his recent interactions and past interactions would seem like he would just be like, oh, more about David Grush. But the fact that he commented on Representative Luna's actions and commends them, that carries weight. I think that's quite good. Now, over to what we know with regards to Lockheed Martin. So, Army Colonel Carl Nell states that intelligence, NHI, is real, right? And it's been engaging with humanity for a long time now. He stated this during a recent interview, and this is what he had to say. It's about 7 minutes long. I'm not sure if I'm going to play the whole thing, but it is very highly interesting.
Would not be possible without the support and grassroots efforts of the folks that are participating in this chat and the folks that are in your guys' orbit. And so what actually is this topic, right? And Ross and Lou also have alluded to this. Non-human intelligence exists. Non-human intelligence has been interacting with humanity on this planet. This interaction is ongoing and it's not new. And there is zero doubt. But you already knew that. So how do we go about convincing other people that this is the case, particularly people that aren't necessarily privy to all the information that some of us may otherwise be? And so there's three principal lines of effort, three principal sources of data. There's essentially the first principles argument, which basically says, counter to common belief, that life is common in the universe. How do we know life should be common in the universe? There's 20 billion sun-like stars in the universe. The sun is a population 1 star. There are planets like this, there's stars like the sun that are 5 billion years older than the sun. That's plenty of time for other civilizations to evolve on these other planets. There is recent scholarship that says that life evolved on Earth in the Hadean era. The Hadean era was before the crust even cooled. There's recent scholarship that says that microbes have been found in terrestrial rock that have dated to 2 billion years ago, essentially in stasis. So life evolved here very quickly. There are many, many planets like the sun, and there are many, many planets that are much older than the sun. People that would argue that life is uncommon have to justify that proposition more than anyone would have to justify the fact that life evolves very quickly. The second point is faster than light travel. Everybody says faster than light travel is not possible. This is false. Miguel Alcubierre, a postgraduate student at the University of Mexico in 1994, solved Einstein's equations for an effective faster than light mechanism. NASA has investigated this. Everyone accepts his solution is valid. His solution requires negative energy. In 1960, quantum physics demonstrated or predicted the reality of negative energy. In the 90s, the Casimir effect was demonstrated in the laboratory. The Casimir effect demonstrates negative energy. The expansion of the universe, which is caused by dark energy, is negative energy. So we have a solution to Einstein's equations that allow effective faster than light travel. We've got the existence of negative energy proven. This isn't an engineering solution. This isn't a means where we can go and do this, but theoretically it's possible. And this is not argued by modern scholarship. So from a first principles, life is more than likely common, and we know that Einstein's equations support effective faster than light travel. That's the first principles argument. The second is the testimonial. Perhaps there are people out there that may know more than some of us might know, including people that have been in the intelligence community, such as myself. So we can look at several presidents, Barack Obama, President Trump. They both said UAP are real. We can look at, as was mentioned earlier, Chris Mellon, Dave Grush, Lou Elizondo have said non-human intelligence is real. We can look at Lord of the Fleet, Lord Hill Norton, a chief of the defense staff in the United Kingdom in past years, have said UFOs are real. We can look at the first Earl Mountbatten of Burma in the United Kingdom again, that have said UFOs are real. We can look at the chief of the Canadian Defense Ministry, Paul Hellyer, who have said non-human intelligence is real. We can look at Haim Eshed, who is the Israelis' father of their space program, who has said non-human intelligence is real. All these people and more would be in a position to know. Then we can look at the evidence, the data. You've seen the videos, the floor video, the gimbal, the go fast. A lot of people probably don't know Gordon Cooper, one of America's 7 Mercury astronauts, chased UFOs over West Germany in 1951. He testified to that fact before the United Nations in 1978, analogous to the David Fravor Tic Tac incident. We can look at the UFO incursions over the Northern Tier ballistic missile early warning sites in the 70s and the document-supported and testimony-supported readiness status change of our ICBMs in the 60s at Malmstrom Air Force Base, where many missiles were taken offline by a UFO. The analogous thing happened in the Soviet Union contemporaneously. In their case, the missiles were brought online. There's an agreement between the United States and, at the time, the Soviet Union, intending to reduce the threat of nuclear war, that talks about each party notifying the other if UFOs are impinging on their warfighting systems, because this was recognized as a fact. There's documentary evidence, the Twining Memo from 1947. General Nathan Twining, future Chief of Staff of the U.S. Air Force, wrote a memorandum that said the UFOs are most likely extraterrestrial. There's official Australian documents declassified on the National Archives of Australia from 1971 from their defense attaché that made a formal assessment of the United States' interest in UFOs, the reality of that, and the fact that the U.S. was investigating anti-gravity programs in concert with looking into UFOs, a conclusion that would make no sense unless the reality of this topic was demonstrated. So some people say, well, if this is real, why don't they fly over the White House or something? Well, in 1952, UFOs flew over Washington, D.C. over 2 weekends. There were radar visual sightings, there were air-to-air intercepts, and it created the largest press conference since World War II up to that time. People say, well, why don't they just land during the middle of the day? Well, that happened in 1994 at the Ariel School in Rura, Zimbabwe, where UFOs presented themselves with beings and occupants on the ground, witnessed by numerous children. The exact same incident happened in 1966 in Westall, Australia. The people that witnessed those events are still alive, and they continue to state the assertion of that being a factual occurrence. So these things taken together, along with much other evidence, suggest that this is absolutely true. And I'm speaking to you today to tell you that there is zero doubt this is absolutely true. I know this personally. So the way to solve this problem is to motivate the grassroots. Political activism is the solution to restoring proper oversight, developing a process for responsible disclosure, and advancing society through the efforts of that process. So I salute you for your participation in this event. Again, I thank New Paradigm Institute. I'm humbled to be able to address you and participate with you in this historic occasion, and I wish you the best.
Obviously, very interesting testimony there from Carl Nell, and it begs the question about, especially Lockheed Martin. We've got Ross Coulthart coming out to state that he knows at least of one Tic Tac UFO that is Lockheed Martin tech. We've then got George Knapp testifying in front of Congress under oath that Lockheed Martin is responsible for a lot of these reverse engineered craft that humans have. Highly, highly interesting. But to cap all of this off, NASA made a huge bombshell claim yesterday that they have discovered the quote-unquote clearest signs of life on Mars, suggesting, obviously, that life might have once lived. Not stating that there is something alive there right this current second, but this has been a conversation ongoing for a while, especially after they found ice on Mars, which of course is a huge turning point to there being a water source of some kind at some point. And that, as far as we're aware, that's what provides us with life. Listen to this because it's very interesting.
So we're talking about Perseverance. This was a mission sent to Mars under President Trump's first presidency. And a year ago, we found a sample, and it was, again, we're exploring in places where there were rivers and where there were lakes. And much as on Earth, we think that that's where we'd see signs of ancient life on Mars. And so a year ago, we thought we found what we believe to be signs of microbial life on the Mars surface. And so we put it out to our scientific friends to pressure test it, to analyze it, and go, did we get this right? Do we think this is signs of ancient life on Mars? And after a year of review, they've come back and they said, listen, we can't find another explanation. So this very well could be the clearest sign of life that we've ever found on Mars. So we're talking about...
I don't like to throw the term bombshell about, but that is quite bombshelling. Obviously, a lot of people have broken this down. Patrick from Vetted has actually uploaded a very good compilation video of the key highlights from this NASA press conference. I recommend you go and check that out if you don't want to check out the full thing, because it is quite lengthy. But this could be interesting. Obviously, it's been peer-reviewed. That means that there's, some weight and legitimacy to the claims being made. And also, off the back of this, Ryan Graves made some very, very heated and serious claims with regards to some more whistleblowers that he's got tucked up his sleeve who are willing to testify. The UFO hearing of September 2025 was an incredibly monumental moment, not just for UFO activists and whistleblowers, but also for the greater public who are keen to get some kind of advocacy and transparency with regards to the UAP topic. And it's completely blown up online. Of course, the Hellfire missile footage has gone mega viral. Everybody is talking about it and the legitimacy of it, or potentially the illegitimacy of it. But there have been some follow-up statements from Representative Luna that I'm very keen to kind of share with you guys after this hearing, because of course she chaired the hearing. She kind of spearheaded this to becoming a thing. Okay, without her, we wouldn't have had this hearing. And she shared this with News Nation, about, this is basically her comments after the hearing took place.
Aside from that story, what did we learn today, Congresswoman?
Well, first of all, there needs to be definitely stronger legislation to protect whistleblowers. As you heard, every single one of these people have had either stories, or we have actually stated in our opening statement that we've heard from multiple military personnel that they simply aren't given the protections that are needed by Congress. But more importantly, as you saw in some of the footage that Representative Burleson released, we have questions. Why is Congress being denied access to this information? We have one of the biggest, most bipartisan bicameral missions here to uncover and discuss this topic. Recently, over 37 government employees, officials, former military, even members of the intelligence community have come forward. And remember, our own Secretary of State was actually stated saying that these people are at high levels of government and are credible in regards to their testimony that they're bringing forward. So, look, I'm not speculating. I'm just going off of what the witnesses are saying, but the evidence speaks for itself.
I mean, he just described this huge triangular object the size of a football field. I mean, this is a military police officer, very well spoken. Yeah. Doesn't sound like he's got some kind of agenda. We've heard about so many that I remember the one that was on 60 Minutes, the orb that came out of the ocean that stopped in midair and went forward. What do you think is going on here? What's in your mind?
Definitely, I'm trying to get to the bottom of that. What's been interesting today, Rob, is that we also had people, George Knapp, that brought forward previously. Yep. A little bit of the U.S. population knew about it. Maybe 1% of these documents were from a Russia, apparently UAP investigative program that they had set up prior to the fall of the Soviet Union that were smuggled out of Russia. So those documents have also been made public. But, my whole objective here is, A, how do we know that it's not false information? Obviously, we think that it's valid based on what the witnesses have provided, and then also previous reports, I think, that came from the DIA. And so, look, we have a big job ahead of us, but my goal and objective, we're trying to provide transparency for the American people. They have these questions, and we're going to help them get answers.
You got 10 seconds. I just want to show, guys, call for 4, the orb from Yemen. If we can put that up really quick just to show it. This is from Burleson right there. This is the I believe the video from Yemen. The importance of this in 10 seconds, if you could.
Look, I don't know anything that exists in our arsenal that can split a Hellfire missile like this. And frankly, the witnesses and many members of Congress also believe that too.
That was 10 seconds. Congresswoman, thanks so much. We appreciate you coming on. I love this stuff. I'm endlessly fascinated by what the hell is out there, so I love it. Thank you. Good to see you.
So, obviously, one of the big things there was UFO whistleblower protection. And this is something that they were really pushing prior to this, but, you know, it is important, especially when you hear the news of the skiff story with regards to David Grush, who is, you know, a member of, well, I suppose Congress to a degree. He's a staffer at Congress. So the fact that he's getting a weapon pulled on him on his way into the skiff is very interesting. And the fact that whistleblowers straight up refused to go to this hearing because they were terrified of their own, for their own safety, is deeply concerning, because of course it completely takes away from the, you know, the story at hand. Now, there is also some very keen interest looking around at this UFO that split the Hellfire missile, right? So, to cut a very long story short, retired Navy pilot Ryan Graves suggests that the UFO splitting the Hellfire missile video might be prosaic. He also recommends that another UFO video captured by the MQ-9 and pilot who is willing to testify. Now, for anyone that doesn't know what prosaic means, it means ordinary, commonplace, or lacking excitement, often used as an explanation for like mundane. So he finds this video to be quite mundane, essentially. So this is what he had to say over on his Twitter page, and he stated, "After further review, it's conceivable the video of a prosaic target struck by a missile, chunks broke off, stabilized in the airstream, and began parabolic descent that is generally aligned with the camera angle, making the target aspect change nearly imperceptible. This word, I can't get it out, as it descends. If we had a longer video, we may see the components impact and water surface eventually. Without source details, I can't say more. Tagging in at Eric Burleson, I'm aware a much longer video with clearly anomalous behaviour captured by the same MQ-9 platform in other parts of the world. The witness is willing to come forward and the videos are accessible through proper channels." So this is highly interesting because he's essentially tagging in Eric Burleson here and stating, hey, you know, the people that captured this MQ-9 footage right here, right, there's other MQ-9 footage out there, and those witnesses are willing to testify and come forward with regards to that. You know, get on the blower, get them involved. Obviously, that's quite a big and very bold claim from Ryan Graves there, because essentially what he's saying is, we've got another whistleblower who's ready to come forward with regards to this. Now, obviously, Eric Burleson did claim after the hearing that he has no idea how legitimate this video is. Obviously, that's a big red flag for a lot of people because they want vetted information, but in Eric Burleson's mind, the idea of transparency is to share anything and everything that they receive, not just the legit or illegit stuff. So, you know, he's shown it anyway and has let basically the UFO and scientific community get their hands on it and just kind of dissect it. A lot of people claim that they know how it was done, claim that this isn't what it was made out to be. Some people swear by its authenticity and legitimacy. But at the same time, it's really hard to know where people kind of truly stand with this because it's become a very, very big divide. A lot of people, once again, saying it's just a balloon. You know, I have a feeling that a Hellfire missile would probably smite a balloon, but, you know, that's just me. That's just my take on it. But I am truly curious about what everyone else has to think about these comments coming out from not just Representative Luna, but Ryan Graves especially. Of course, did Ryan Graves testify in front of Congress? I feel like I'm going to have to Google it. Did Ryan Graves testify to Congress? Bear with me. Yes, he did. He was there with David Grush. So, you know, he's already kind of had his moment in the limelight with that. He knows how this works. Right, okay, good. There's a bit of context. What do you guys make of all of this news from the week? Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. While you're down there, jump to get the hell out of that like button and subscribe. And until next time, I'll speak to you later. Peace.